It was well past midnight. The kind of midnight when time itself feels frozen. Outside, a thick blanket of darkness had swallowed everything, the trees, the path, the hills, even the sky. There was no moonlight, no lantern glow, nothing. Just a deep, endless blackness. I was lying in the veranda of a forest bungalow, deep inside the jungle. The old wooden veranda creaked softly whenever the night wind touched it. I was stretched out on a long, comfortable chair, the kind meant for slow evenings and quiet thoughts. My legs rested on a small wooden stand. In my hand, I held my pipe. Thin lines of smoke drifted slowly into the dark air, disappearing as if the night itself was swallowing them. And then I heard it. A sound. A sound that, to every lover of the Indian jungle, feels like pure music. But to every hunter, it is not music at all. It is a challenge. A warning. A test of courage. That sound rolled across the forest like thunder. It echoed between the trees, traveled through the valleys, and came back again, deeper and more powerful each time. A tiger's call. Somewhere in that endless darkness, the great animal was moving. I could almost feel it stepping through the jungle. Soft, silent, confident steps. Not the clumsy movement of a frightened animal, but the calm walk of a king who knows the forest belongs to him. I could even hear its slow, satisfied breathing. It sounded as if the animal knew, without the slightest doubt, that it was the true ruler of this land. In my mind, I could see it clearly. In that deep darkness, its golden-brown coat would blend perfectly with the shadows. The black stripes would break its shape, hiding its body among the trees and tall grass. The white spots behind its ears, the pale fur on its throat and belly, none of it would be visible to human eyes. Even if someone looked straight at it, they might not recognize it as a tiger at all. All they would see is a shadow. A shape darker than the jungle itself. A moving patch of darkness among still darkness. And if the person watching had no torch, no moonlight, nothing to guide his eyes, he would see absolutely nothing. Human eyes are helpless in such deep blackness. When darkness is already complete, there is nothing left to see. And yet, even without seeing it, the man would know. He would know that a tiger was close. Because then the roar would come again. A deep, powerful roar that shakes the air itself. A sound so strong that it seems to pass through your bones. The entire jungle would feel it, the trees, the leaves, the ground, and the man listening in the dark. And at that moment, his body would tremble. Now, if that man were not an ordinary person, but a highly trained and experienced hunter, someone with sharp, alert senses, he might hear more than just the roar. He might hear the faint rustle of grass. He might catch the soft whisper of a leaf brushing against a heavy, passing body. But he would not hear a twig snap. A tiger never makes such a careless mistake. It is a hunter. And hunters do not announce themselves. They move like shadows. They strike without warning. Now imagine something even more frightening. Suppose that same observer was sitting on a low branch of a tree. And the tiger passed right beneath him. If his sense of smell were sharp enough, he might suddenly catch a strong, wild scent. A heavy, musky smell that would reach his nose for only a few seconds before disappearing into the night air. In that very moment, if the man were religious, he should whisper a quick prayer. Then he should stop breathing. He should not move a single muscle. Not his hands. Not his feet. Not even his eyelids. Because while a tiger's sense of smell is not very strong, its hearing is unbelievably sharp. And its eyesight is even more dangerous. A tiger can detect the smallest movement in the dark. The slightest shift of a finger. The faintest flutter of an eyelid. If, at that moment, the tiger noticed even the smallest sound or movement from the man, that man might never see the morning. Because the tiger whose roar I was hearing that night was not an ordinary tiger. It was a man-eater. And now think about this. This tiger could move silently. It had incredible hearing. Sharp, deadly eyesight. And that mysterious sixth sense that every tiger seems to possess. So then, why was it doing this? Why was such a perfect hunter announcing its presence? Why was it roaring into the night instead of staying silent? It was breathing, roaring into the darkness. Now that question naturally comes to mind. Why? Why would a tiger, especially a man-eater, make so much noise? The question is perfectly reasonable. And to be honest, I cannot give a precise answer, because I am not a tiger. But I can make a guess. You see, most strong men, men with powerful bodies, good boxers, skilled wrestlers, rarely hide their strength. They like to show it. At times, all of us feel proud of our abilities. We want others to know what we can do. And the men who are popular among women. They often boast about their victories, speaking loudly of their conquests. Perhaps the tiger was doing the same thing. Perhaps, in his pride, he was announcing to the whole jungle that he was invincible, fearless, the true king of that forest. Maybe he enjoyed hearing his own challenge echo across the hills, the valleys, and the deep woods. Knowing that the moment his roar was heard, every living creature froze, trembled, and hid. Or perhaps, he was lonely. Perhaps he felt the sadness of isolation. Tired of his own company. Just as we humans sometimes feel. Maybe he was searching for companionship. Especially the company of a beautiful tigress. Or maybe, he had just finished a heavy meal. His stomach full, his body relaxed. And he had simply come out for a night walk, just for pleasure. After all, we humans do the same. We take a walk after dinner, whistling softly or humming a tune without even realizing it. But I must admit something. I have started this story the wrong way. I have wandered around the subject instead of beginning where I should have. I cannot tell you exactly why the tiger was there. Except for the obvious fact that tigers live in jungles. But I should have told you why I was lying in that chair on the veranda of the Jal Dhahal forest bungalow, at midnight, smoking my pipe and listening to those beautiful yet terrifying sounds. So let us begin from the beginning. There is a town called Kamoga. It is the headquarters of a district with the same name, in the state of Mysore. About 12 or 13 miles away from that town lies a large settlement called Bhadravati. It is almost as big as Kamoga and has grown into an important industrial area. There are iron and steel factories there. From the iron mines at a place called Kemanagandi, in the Bababudin mountain range. Iron ore is taken out of the mountains. That iron is carried down the slopes by a long series of cable buckets, one after another, until it reaches the factories in Bhadravati. For fuel, wood is cut from the thick forests nearby and turned into charcoal. At night, the blast furnaces of Bhadravati glow like a giant fire. Their red light can be seen from miles away. It colors the horizon with a deep crimson glow, and even the clouds in the night sky reflect that fiery red light. Jal Dhahal forest lies about 15 miles from Bhadravati, on a road that runs east toward Chitaldurg. It is completely surrounded by thick forest. There, the forest department has built a beautiful bungalow. About 10 miles to the southwest of Jal Dhahal, deep inside the jungle, there is another forest bungalow. It is not quite as beautiful, but it stands in a lovely location. That place is called Gunjur. I had camped at Gunjur many times before. It was a wonderful place. But the road leading to Gunjur. If I had to describe it in one word, that word would be, terrible. The road turned east about 5 miles before the main road that ran from Bhadravati. But after that turn, it could hardly be called a road at all. It was nothing more than a rough, muddy track, barely fit for a bullock cart. And even that was being generous. I had once crossed that 20-mile stretch in my old Model T Ford car. Later, I drove it in my Studebaker as well. During those journeys, I felt deep sympathy, and a great deal of respect, for Henry Ford and the Studebaker brothers. My nerves were always on edge. Every bump felt like it would tear the car apart. But strangely enough, not once did a spring break. And not once did an axle snap. At the forest bungalow in Gunjur, there lived a hard-working and helpful caretaker. Every time I stayed there, he did everything he could to make my visit comfortable. The caretaker had a small daughter. When I first saw her, she was about 12 years old. She loved looking at cars. Whenever I arrived, she would stare at my vehicle with wide, curious eyes. And she would look at my guns from a distance, studying them with great interest. Like her father, she was very helpful. About a furlong away from the bungalow, there was a small spring. She would carry water from there in a pot, bring it back to the bungalow, and pour it into an old zinc bathtub in the bathroom so that I could use it. Years passed. That little girl slowly grew up. By the time I saw her again, she was about 17, a beautiful young woman. Her father had worked very hard to arrange her marriage with a respectable man from a nearby village. The wedding was to take place soon. One day, as she did every day, she went to the spring to fetch water for herself and her father. They lived in an outhouse behind the forest bungalow, a small building used as a storeroom, located between the kitchen and the garage. But that day, the girl never returned. As she bent down near the spring to fill her pot, the man-eating tiger struck. It seized her and dragged her into the forest. A forest that began right at the edge of the spring. Her father heard her screams. He had no gun. Only a heavy wood-cutting knife, or perhaps a small axe. Grabbing it, he ran as fast as he could after the tiger. And incredibly, he actually caught up with it. In Kannada language, he shouted, "Leave my child, you demon! I will kill you!" The tiger heard his voice and turned. He saw the man running toward it. At that moment, the cowardice that lives in the heart of every man-eater showed itself. The tiger was afraid. But in its jaws was a weak, struggling girl. An easy, tempting prey. It did not want to give her up. So the tiger ran faster. Deeper into the forest. The girl's screams grew fainter. And fainter. Until they stopped completely. Later, the broken father told me something that chilled me to the bone. He never even found the remains of his daughter. There was no road between Gunjur and Jal Dhahal. Only a narrow, winding footpath through dense forests and thick jungle. About 2 months later, a young Muslim boy had gone fishing at a small pond about 6 furlongs from a cluster of huts near Jal Dhahal. It seemed luck was on his side. After he disappeared, they found a basket filled with a dozen fish. 2 bamboo fishing rods lay beside it. In India, fishing is done a little differently. The rod is usually just a thin bamboo stick. A simple thread is tied to it, and at the end of the thread is the bait, usually an earthworm dug out from the roadside soil. Perhaps the boy was so happy with his good catch that he stayed longer than he should have. If he had caught fewer fish, he might have returned earlier. But he stayed. Until darkness began to fall. And dusk is the hour when tigers come out. A man-eater is no exception. The boy never returned home. By 8 o'clock at night, his father and elder brother grew worried. They knew he had gone to the pond. Carrying lanterns and sticks, they went out to fetch him. Perhaps they even planned to scold him, or beat him, for staying out so late. At the pond, they found the 2 bamboo rods. They found the basket full of fish. But the boy was gone. Instead, in the flickering light of their lanterns, they saw something in the mud. Large tiger tracks. The tiger had come out of the forest. Slipped in the mud. And then gone back into the jungle. But it had not gone alone. It had taken the boy with it. In the grass, something dark and shiny lay on the ground. When the father and son bent down and touched it. And then looked at their fingers. They saw them turn red. It was blood. They dropped everything and ran back to the village. Then came the third killing. But this time, nobody was worried. A madman had wandered into Jal Dhahal. No one knew who he was or where he had come from. And because he was completely insane, he could not tell anyone himself. In India, people often show a strange kind of tolerance toward madmen. Children tease them, but the elders scold the children and give the madman something to eat. No one pays much attention to him beyond that. So the madman lived like that. Eating whatever kind people gave him. And sleeping at night outside the closed doors of huts. Somewhere along the roadside. But one morning, he was gone. No one really cared when the madman disappeared. To the villagers, he was just a wandering lunatic who had come and gone. Life in the jungle villages was hard. People had their own problems. So his absence caused no alarm, no search, no questions. But 2 days later, something changed. A group of forest guards were on patrol through the jungle that surrounded the village from all sides. As they walked, they noticed vultures circling high in the sky. Round and round they flew, then suddenly diving down toward the ground again. The guards immediately understood what it meant. Something had died. Perhaps a deer. And if it was a deer, maybe some meat would still be left. They could either sell it, or cook it and eat it themselves. So they hurried toward the place where the vultures had gathered. But when they reached the spot, they did not find a deer. Instead, they found the whitening bones of the madman. Only his skull lay a short distance away from the rest of the remains. In the soft sand around the head, the guards saw clear, deep paw prints. The unmistakable tracks of a large tiger. I had not even heard about these killings. Not until a friend of mine told me the story. He had heard it from another man who had been traveling by car toward Bhadravati. That man had stopped at the Jal Dhahal bungalow for a few days of hunting. There, he heard about the tiger and the 3 people who had already fallen victim to it. The caretaker of the Jal Dhahal bungalow was a distant relative of the caretaker at Gunjur. He told the visitor that the first victim had been the promising young daughter of the Gunjur caretaker. When that traveler returned to its home, he told the entire story to my friend. And because my friend knew that I paid close attention to such incidents, he passed the information on to me. The news struck me like a blow. The girl. The one I remembered so clearly, the cheerful child who used to watch my cars and guns with such excitement. Her death forced me to act. I wrote a letter to the forest range officer at Jal Dhahal. I asked for complete details. But above all, I wanted to know one thing. Was the rumor true? Was the first victim really the caretaker's daughter from Gunjur? 5 days later, the reply came. It confirmed the tragic story. Without wasting time, I drove my Studebaker straight to Jal Dhahal. There, I heard the same story that I have just told you. That was 48 hours ago. Since then, I had walked the 10-mile footpath to Gunjur. There, I met my old friend, the caretaker. As he told me the story of his daughter's death, he broke down completely. He wept like a helpless child. I promised him that I would do everything in my power to avenge his daughter. I told him that if he found any fresh tracks or heard any news of the tiger within the next week, he must send word to me immediately at Jal Dhahal. He suggested that I should stay in Gunjur itself. But I chose Jal Dhahal for 2 reasons. First, 2 killings had already taken place near it. Second, my stud baker was there, and the roads around Jal Dhahal were usable. So I returned the same way to Jal Dhahal. That night, I was sleeping inside the bungalow. Sometime after midnight, I suddenly woke up. And then, I heard the tiger. I went out to the veranda and sat in the chair. Smoking my pipe, I sat there listening to the terrifying yet beautiful sound. As the roar echoed through the jungle, my thoughts drifted back a few years. To that lively little girl. The mischievous child who used to get excited whenever she saw my cars or guns. The one who fetched water for me willingly, the one who had grown into a beautiful young woman, ready for marriage. And now, she had fallen victim to the same magnificent yet cruel animal, whose voice I was hearing at that very moment. Without realizing it, I shivered. Slowly, the roar faded. It seemed to move farther and farther away. From the direction of the sound, I believed the tiger was heading toward Gunjur. Perhaps along the very same footpath that led there. I decided that at first light, I would investigate. With that thought, I went back to sleep. Mosquitoes remained active until dawn. And I did not get a good night's rest. Still, I woke up before sunrise. After drinking some coffee and eating a few chapatis, I waited for the sunlight to grow stronger. I wanted to follow the tracks of the tiger that had called in the night. It would not be wise to leave too early. The tiger might still be hiding somewhere near the path in the bushes. The faint light of early morning can be as deceptive as the dimness of evening. But I knew that once the sun rose higher, the man-eater would move to a safe, hidden place to escape the daytime heat. And it would remain there until evening. About a mile from the bungalow, I found what I was looking for. The tiger had come through a narrow valley. Then, with a single leap, it had climbed up the bank and started walking along the very path I was using to go to Gunjur. Its large, plate-sized paw prints were fresh. They had been made after midnight. And they stood out clearly in the dry dust of the path. The tiger had walked right down the center of the trail. It was so fearless that it had roared as it walked. Confident that every creature would keep its distance. There was no solid proof that this was the man-eater. But there was something in the way it moved, something arrogant, something bold. That convinced me it was the same tiger, I was almost certain. So I decided to follow its tracks and find out whether it had truly gone all the way to Gunjur, or turned off somewhere along the way. For nearly 2 miles, the huge male tiger walked straight down the middle of the path. Then the tracks suddenly dropped off toward a dry stream bed. The tiger began walking along the sandy floor of the stream. The sun was rising higher, and judging by its direction, I realized that the stream ran southeast. That meant the tiger was moving away from both Gunjur and Jal Dhahal, but that did not last long. After about half a mile, the tiger climbed up the right bank and disappeared into the forest. On the hard, dry ground there, the tracks soon vanished, and I could no longer follow them. I guessed that the tiger had probably turned back through the jungle and rejoined the old path to Gunjur, the one it had followed before reaching the stream. It was better to return to the known path than wander blindly through thick bushes. So I retraced my own footsteps back to the trail. After about a mile of walking, I was rewarded. In the sandy stretch of the path, I found the tiger's fresh tracks again. My guess had been correct. The tiger had taken a shortcut through the jungle and returned to the path, continuing toward Gunjur. It was now clear, the tiger was determined to reach Gunjur. And from my experience, a tiger rarely changes its intention unless something unusual forces it to. My assumption proved right, except for a few small detours. The tiger followed the path all the way to Gunjur. Because I was constantly studying the tracks, I could not walk fast. The 10-mile journey took me 4 full hours. When I finally reached the Gunjur bungalow, it was around 11 in the morning. The caretaker's name was Anant Swami. I told him how I had heard the tiger's roar at Jal Dhahal after midnight. And how I had followed its tracks all the way to Gunjur. He told me he had been awake since 4 in the morning, but he had not heard the tiger. However, around 4:30, 2 or 3 sombers had been giving continuous alarm calls. At dawn, the cheetal also became restless. They were calling from near a small hill south of the bungalow. We both reached the same conclusion. The tiger's silence and the nervous calls of the deer proved that it had come to Gunjur with serious intentions. Now, it is wrong to think that a man-eating tiger or leopard lives only on human flesh. Both animals, especially tigers, are heavy eaters. If a man-eater fed only on humans, 2 things would happen. First, a huge number of people would die. Because a tiger hunts at least twice a week. Second, once people became very cautious and the tiger could not catch anyone, it would eventually starve. In reality, something else happens. A man-eater develops a taste for human flesh. And soon it realizes that humans are much easier to catch than wild animals. Slowly, it begins to prefer killing men, women, or children instead of cattle, deer, or wild pigs. But when it cannot find humans, it returns to its natural prey without hesitation. There is another strange but true fact. No matter how many people they kill, man-eating tigers and leopards are still afraid of humans deep inside. Many times, when a person, or even a woman, has shouted, resisted, or attacked, even the fiercest man-eater has fled in fear. But a tiger never fears its natural prey or domestic animals. Except for two creatures: the bison and the elephant. So, since the tiger had not found any human prey at Jal Dhahal, it had clearly decided to move toward Gunjur. The low hills and wide grassy valleys around Gunjur were full of deer. The tiger would probably stay there for a few days, killing and eating sombers and cheetal. Then, once its hunger was satisfied, its craving for human flesh would return. And except for the caretaker, now living alone, there were no people in Gunjur. No nearby village. No other humans. So after a few days, the tiger would probably return to Jal Dhahal. Or try its luck in a small village along the Bhadravati, Cheetal Durg road. That meant the man-eater would likely remain around Gunjur for at least 2 or 3 days. The chances would increase even more if it killed a deer. Because after a successful kill, a tiger usually stays with the carcass for up to 48 hours. And in Gunjur, there was no shortage of prey. Somber, cheetal, jungle sheep, and the four-horned antelope all lived there. Gunjur was also a good place to trap the tiger. The forest bungalow stood in an open clearing. Nearby was a small spring. The area was surrounded by low hills. From those heights, a tiger could easily see any bait placed in the open valley below. Unfortunately, I had brought nothing except my rifle. My torch, worn night clothes, primer stove, and all my provisions were back at the Jal Dhahal bungalow, 10 miles away. I had just walked that distance. To go back, collect everything, and return would mean a 30-mile journey. The idea was not appealing. And I could not complete that distance before nightfall. Ananta Swami offered to lend me his torch. It had only 2 batteries. He also offered me his only food, ragi balls. And a place to stay, free of cost. I accepted his invitation. But then a serious problem appeared: he had no animal to use as bait. He owned only a dog, a thin, dirty creature. But a dog is not good bait for a tiger. And I am a dog lover myself. I refused completely. Then another question arose: was I being too optimistic? How could I be sure that the tiger I was tracking was truly the man-eater? It might simply be an ordinary tiger. One that hunted wild animals and occasionally cattle. I discussed all this with Ananta Swami. When I accepted his hospitality and said I would stay for 2 days, his eyes lit up with happiness. He said he was certain it was the man-eater. There was no other tiger in the area at that time. As for bait, he said the problem was easy to solve. He himself would sit or stand in the open as bait. I could hide behind a bush or on a tree platform and shoot the tiger before it leaped on him. Then he added quickly, "Do not think I am doing this for you, do not think I am brave or unafraid. I am very afraid, but I will do it gladly, to avenge my daughter. She was everything to me. After her mother died. And then her elder brother died of smallpox. She was my whole world. I would gladly give my life to kill her cruel murderer." His simple yet magnificent courage touched me deeply. But this was not the time for emotions. And I could not allow a brave man's blood to be on my hands. The night would be very dark. I would be using only that small 2-cell torch. I had no clamp to attach the torch to my rifle. I would have to hold it in my left hand and aim the rifle at the same time. It would take at least 2 seconds to bring the light onto the target. And even 1 second would be enough for the tiger to spring on Anant Swami and kill him. So I answered firmly, "No." Then, so as not to hurt his feelings, and to hide my real reason, I said, "I will need you near me. When the tiger comes, you must shine the torch on it, and I will shoot." He did not seem satisfied. He said, "Dorai, you can hold the torch in your left hand and still fire the rifle." Seeing that an argument was starting, I replied, "No, absolutely not, that is final." We sat in silence for some time, both deep in thought. Then an idea came to me. The man-eater had taken his daughter from the spring where she went to fetch water. Perhaps the tiger remembered that place. Perhaps it had seen her and Ananta Swami going there many times. It might associate that spring with human presence. The spring was only a furlong from the bungalow, in a slightly lower clearing that was clearly visible from the surrounding hills. Yes. That spring was the perfect place for bait. But the nights were dark and without a torch clamp, neither Anant Swami nor I could serve as live bait. So there was only one option. We would make a dummy, a human-shaped figure, like a person bending to draw water from the spring. And I would hide nearby, as close as possible, so that the weak beam of the two-cell torch would still be effective. I explained my idea to Ananta Swami. He was delighted. "Dorai," he said, "let us go to the spring right now. You can choose your hiding place. And tonight, when the tiger comes to attack the dummy, you will shoot it." This is the first part of the story. We will soon be back with another part. Till then, take care.